Ihr Lieben, herzlich willkommen zu deinem Lieblingspodcast, dem Bewohnerfrei-Podcast. Ich hoffe, es geht dir gut. Ich hoffe, du bist gesund. Und erneut Dankeschön für über 14 Millionen Downloads hier. Heute habe ich einen ganz spannenden Gast. Ihr wisst ja, dass ich Aufschieben ganz, ganz furchtbar finde. Und wir haben heute den Autor hier von Getting Things Done. Also einen einfacheren Buchtitel kannst du nicht haben. David Allen, geboren 28. Dezember 1945. Er ist der Erfinder der Selbstverwaltungsmethode und er hat angefangen, das ist richtig, richtig spannend, im Debattierclub. Er war Staatsmeister im Debattieren. Er studierte Geisteswissenschaften, hatte mit 35 bereits 35 Jobs und dann hat er in den 20er Jahren den schwarzen Gürtel im Karate gemacht und hat dann angefangen, die Methodik des Getting Things Done zu erfinden. Man hätte auch zu seinem Namen halten können, aber er wollte nur eine Karriere und er ist der Gründer der David Allen Company, die sich auf Produktivitätsmethoden und Führungskräfte spezialisiert und das gibt es auf der ganzen Welt. Er lebt in den Niederlanden, in Amsterdam and now we switch in Dutch or German. Goedemorgen, meneer.
Ja, goedemorgen, Toby. Ja. Dank je wel.
Gaat het met jou?
Engels is heel beter.
Okay, then we switch into English. Thank you so much for taking time for our.
We kunnen Schweizerdeutsch een beetje spreken.
We can do that too. You pick the language. Which one would you like?
Nee. Engels, English. Yeah.
All right, we do.
Okay.
We do English. I just said in the introduction that procrastination is really a disease for so many people because that's why, most of life goals are not reached. Would you agree with that sentence?
I would say that it's overcommitments that's the disease.
Okay.
It's the stress of opportunity and the fear of making mistakes, which is the bigger disease. That's the cause of procrastination. Usually, is you don't want to engage with something that you don't feel like you can control immediately. It's that sort of initial risk taking. Oh my God, I have to write a blog. Oh, where do I start? Oh God, and so it's all about the shitty first draft, which is the best way to start. And
Generation Z would say, easy for you to say, David, when you were born, 1945, there were like 300 jobs or studies to pick from. Now they can, if they go to college or university, there are tens of thousands of different opportunities.
And it's global. Yeah, it's the stress of opportunity. Look, if you're Toby, if your building caught on fire right now, you wouldn't have any issue about your taxes or tires on your car or hiring a vice president. You wouldn't have any of those issues because you'd get very focused on the primary thing you need to do right now, which is live, get out of the friggin' building, right? So in a crisis, people actually tend to focus themselves appropriately. If you don't have that kind of crisis, it's kind of like a bigger crisis emerges. All the demons at the gate come rushing at you. Oh my God, Toby, what could you be doing right now instead of talking to David? But you could be doing this, and that's going to improve. Oh my God, and here's a book you could write. And here's, oh my God.
Right, in a voice.
And so that's what's really changed a lot in the world is the volume of opportunities, and therefore the necessity to make good choices about it and feel okay about that.
There are many people. There's a German proverb which says that most people have a nice boat at the harbor, but they never go to sea, and it looks really fancy, and it has everything, but they don't start sailing.
That's right.
How do I start getting the courage of just going to the ocean?
I don't know. I don't know, Toby. Come on. How would you start? Well, I think you have to have enough of a vision of fun, creativity. God, wouldn't it be cool if I did? And I need to go. Now, some people have no trouble starting because they're so engaged with the vision that they'll leave the harbor even without all the stuff they need. Like, I just want to get out in the ocean and experience this. So you've got those two different types. I would imagine, the German. I don't know. I don't want to overgeneralize in terms of cultures, but I would say the German culture is probably more, let me get all my act totally together before I start.
Many are like this. That's why they never start.
And that's okay until not starting hurts.
Oh, that's an interesting sentence, because you, in your introduction, I read that you had 35 different jobs until you were 35. So you were kind of looking where to go as well, right? I mean,
No, I was looking to how to find God, truth, the universe, and who I really was on the planet. So it was, for me at that time, it was a lot about personal exploration, spiritual, meditative, martial arts, and so forth that I was very much involved in. But they don't pay you for those things. So I had to make a living, and, I was not into exiting and, going to India or Tibet and getting a rice bowl in a cave. That wasn't my style. I love good-looking women and Chardonnay and things like that. So then I had to have a job. I had to have a job while I was doing all this self-exploration stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's where a lot of it came from. And actually, I got a lot of good experience.
What kind of jobs did you have? I mean,
well, I ran a car restoration business in Los Angeles. I helped two friends start a New Orleans style restaurant in LA. I sold mopeds, little gasoline, whatever.
Chimati. Still running around in Amsterdam, right?
It was Chimati. No, this is LA, right? This is where I was for most of that time. I was a cook in a hamburger joint. I helped a friend manage a landscape company. I helped a friend start a used car rental business. How many were there? I just thought, at some point, I don't know if I was stoned or just drunk or just silly one night when I was 35, and I said, let me just add up how many things I've actually done for money. Hmm. They started at age 5 as a magician in Texas, in Palestine, Texas, when I just did magic tricks on the sidewalk for 5 cents. That was my first job.
Wow. But would you think, though, that might be overgeneralizing as well? But like from a European perspective, Americans are having a lot of different jobs. They're easier to move. Like my host family, I lived in Florida with a family. They moved so many times and they didn't make a big deal about it. And here, everything is a big deal, you know?
No, I know. In Europe, especially if you grew up in the educational system, you got to make some hard choices by the time you're 12 or 13 or 15 years old in terms of what kind of career you expect and what kind of education you want to make that happen. And so that's very different than, of course, the U.S. In the U.S., it was all liberal studies, study whatever you want, do whatever you want in high school, and then go to, especially if you weren't specializing even by the time you were 18 and graduated from high school, you could just go to a liberal arts college like I did and not even decide what you wanted to do. You just go study, or play and, sex, drugs and party, or as long as until they kicked you out. So, all those things were possible in the US for sure.
And you were also in martial arts, which pretty much trains you to go think into words one direction and being straight and being disciplined. When did you ask yourself the question the first time, why am I here? How do I get things done? Or did it just happen on the way?
It just kind of happened on the way. I think when it started to occur was after all those jobs, I'd walk in and I was a really good number 2 guy. I helped these guys do what they were doing. I didn't particularly care what they were doing. I cared about keeping a job. And of course, I wasn't dumb. And, I'd just walk in and go, of course, my focus, because I'm just the laziest guy Toby ever met. I just walk in.
That's me.
Well, come on. I just walk in and go, how much easier can we do this? How can I leave a little bit earlier today? How can we improve? They call that process improvement now, yada, yada. So, okay, but back then I would just help them fix whatever was kind of off or not as well as it could be, and then it would get onto cruise control, and then I got bored. Okay, and so I just wind up getting inspired about another job and not that one, and so I'd leave that one and go to another job. And then one day I discovered they call those people something, they pay them to do it, consultant. Oh my God, couldn't even spell it. Now I was one, right? So
Did that ever come natural to you? Like you saw things that other people didn't see? Is that a talent? Is that what is that?
Oh, come on, Toby. The coolest things you're experiencing right now. designed or developed by probably the laziest people in the world because they wanted to get something done with less effort, more class, ease, and elegance. Right.
Right.
I mean, and the whole IT world, they're the hardest working people about how to make your life easier. Right. It's all about, okay, essentially an efficiency factor. So that's not unique to me, but it just, I just kind of caught on to that. And also because of my experience in meditation and spiritual practices and martial arts, I got turned on to the practical value as well as the maybe spiritual value of clear space. What was it like to have nothing on your mind? What was it like to be totally present? So the mindfulness people are like teaching that these days, but I learned that 35 years ago getting a black belt in karate because, in the high levels of the training in the martial arts, a lot of that's about how do you clear your head. Right. If you're jumped by 4 people in a dark alley, you don't want 2,000 unprocessed emails banging around in your brain. You don't want anything to think about except being totally present and then building, acute situational awareness to whatever's going on around you. So you don't fight 4 people at once. You fight one at a time, but very quick.
Would you give that? Is that an advice you would give to young people? Clear your head before? Is that?
My advice to anybody, and has been for 35 years, get a clear head. You want to set your priorities? Do it with a clear head. You want to cook spaghetti? Do it with a clear head. You want to watch your kids play football and not be on your smartphone? Get a clear head.
80% of the listeners will say now, how do I get a clear head?
Oh, it's very easy. You want the 20-second version of my 35 years? Here it is. Anything that has your attention you can't finish in the moment you think of it, you'd better capture in an external form in some sort of trusted bucket. Sooner than later, decide exactly what you're going to do about it, what it means to you, what outcome you're committed to complete about it, and what action step you need to take. And then park those reminders in the appropriate places in a trusted system that you then review consistently and regularly from a larger gestalt or picture. So you're making trusted choices about what you do, and probably more importantly,
that's one of the best explanations I've ever heard.
That's it. So I'll apologize to you and everybody else. I'm not going to say anything else other than what I just said. If you're going to ask me anything more about it, it's just that most people aren't even close to doing what I just said.
That bucket you just said, or that place where I put it to, how does it look like in your life, where I have the chance of looking at it from above, like with an astronaut perspective?
Well, capture is very different than organize. Mm-hmm. So the capturing function is simply, I got an in basket right here, happens to be empty, but it's physical. It's right here. I could throw stuff in there. I just got an order that came in. I just, a little note that I need to make an appointment with my dermatologist. And, I've got stuff in there that I didn't need to deal with. And so just that's a physical capture place. Right. As I'm moving around, whatever, there's my capture place. It's like pen and paper. Can't beat it. No Wi-Fi, no batteries required, whatever. So low tech is I'm capturing possible things that are meaningful to me. I don't know what the meaning is yet.
Why is
that's the problem. A lot of people don't want to write things down until they know what they're going to do about it.
Right. I understand. Why is that better though to use a pen and paper than putting it into an iPhone?
You could put it into an iPhone. I could put it into my iPhone, but how many clicks am I going to have before I can input it? And by the way, how many clicks am I going to have before I look at it again and decide what to do about it? You can do that. That's fine. You can write it on your ass. It doesn't matter where you're going to write it. But as long as you get it out of your head somewhere, and as long as sooner than later you move to steps 2 and 3, which is clarify and organize. See, I write a lot of notes that I just decide not to do anything with later on. I thought it was smart when I had the idea, or it might be useful, and I write it down. If anybody listening or watching this has ever taken notes in a meeting, that's what you're doing. You're not sure what to do about all those notes. You're just taking notes.
Right. That's true.
Then what do you need to do after the meeting? Right. You need to take those notes and decide. Right? And decide what? Step 2. What did I just commit to anything? Somebody else commit to something I need to track? Is there something going on with the team or with the meeting that's a project that I need to identify and clarify? I mean, so there's some thinking and executive thinking that needs to happen about the raw data you collect. It's like editing. if you're writing blogs, you're writing a book, or you're writing anything, at some point, crappy first draft is the best way to start. But then you need to come back and assess, wait a minute, that's not the best way to say that, whatever. So in life, you've got a capture function, which is, let me get all the potentially meaningful stuff, right? And then you move to, don't lose that potentially meaningful stuff. That needs to be in some trusted bucket.
Right.
And you need as many as you need. I mean, unfortunately, these days, things like Slack and Asana and a lot of the digital tools that are showing up organizationally have just added more in baskets for people.
Mm.
It's like, oh God, what am I going to do? Now I have all that stuff I have to deal with as well.
Right.
So that's kind of a lot of the bad news of the digital world, is it's spread a lot of the communication channels into multiple different channels. And so depending upon your agreement with yourself and anybody else involved, that may mean that your capture function has got to include your physical mailbox. It has to include your in basket at, wherever you're doing your work. So you can throw receipts and throw your notes or whatever until you make decisions about it, or throw the FedEx or DHL that just showed up. And I don't know what's in there, but I got to unpack it later on and decide that. So you need some place that you can capture those things that then need decision-making and then organization of the things that you need to keep track of. And so that's why these are I came up with the 5 steps. I didn't make them up. I just identified the 5 things you do to get your kitchen under control or your consciousness under control, which is, let me identify what's off or what needs something different done about it. Let me decide what different and done looks like and means. Let me organize the results of that in some appropriate trusted place, so that I can step back and see the vision of the whole game and then make a trusted choice about what I do. So again, as I said, let me apologize. That's exactly what I told you in 20 seconds a few minutes ago.
What I think is very inspiring pretty much is also that little box you showed to me, it is empty.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, by the way, your physical mailbox, Toby, is that ever empty?
Yeah.
Why? Why not leave the crappy stuff in there? Because you wouldn't have room for any of the good stuff.
Then my wife is going on my nerves. She would say, "You have to clean it. You have to bring it away."
Well, no, you have to bring it in first.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. And then who gets it? Does she have an in basket? Do you have an in basket at home where you can then distribute what comes into your physical mailbox?
I'm very privileged in the way that I pretty much get 1 email per week. I don't get any emails anymore because my team is, fortunately for me, putting 99% of that away, and I just get 1 summary per week, so I can write books and do interviews and whatever. That's very privileged. I love that because I'm a person, and I always use this for coaching here, of course, as well. I mean, it's people are allowed to listen while I'm coached. When my inbox is full, I can't sleep. I'm a person, I have to get rid of it before I go to sleep. That's why we have this 1 mail concept now, because otherwise I would get up at night to answer. That might be a little bit strange, but
no, it's actually what I do. I just don't have any staff. I don't like to manage people. I like to work alone, and so you and I have different choices about how we decided to play that game. So I do it that way, but I don't have to empty. I could let the in basket pile up. Not usually past 24, 48 hours, but I know how to get to it. I know how to zero it fast. And so it lets me be absolutely free as I want to be free and not have to deal with any of those things or make decisions about it.
Right.
I'm doing emergency scanning every once in a while just because, why not? Just to see if there's anything that I might need or want my attention.
Right.
So it's nice that you've structured your life that way. But if there's stuff coming in that might need your attention within 24 hours, you have people set up to be able to deliver those to you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, well then you're fine.
With the calendar, we found out a way. In which step of the ones that you described, most people don't make it?
Everyone.
Everyone.
No, come on. There are a lot of people that write some things down, but a lot of things they don't. So they don't trust their list and they don't trust their head. Mm-hmm. So that's the first place, is people just don't capture all the stuff that has their attention. And then what happens is, because it's spinning in there in a place that has no sense of past or future, it wakes them up at 3 o'clock in the morning about stuff they can't do anything about. Mm-hmm. So that's mistake 1, is not doing step 1, not capturing everything in some external trusted form that has your attention. that cat food, or I need a new company, and all of that. And so that's the first mistake. The second mistake is, even if people have written things down, they haven't decided what the next action is on those, or what outcome they're finally committed to get to.
Yeah.
The second mistake is a big one, which is people don't apply the thought process of outcome and action, which is the core elements of productivity. What are you trying to produce with this bad aching tooth you have? What are you trying to produce relative to your mom's birthday? What are you trying to produce relative to the VP? What are you trying to produce about yada, yada? So step 2 is to clarify outcomes and actions. What you've decided, I'm going to give mom a birthday party. Fabulous. What's the next step? Oh, no, I should call my sister. Fine. So great. So outcome and action thinking is the second thing people don't do. And most people listening, anybody listening or watching this looks at their to-do list. If they have anything that looks like a to-do list, they haven't got outcomes and actions on there. Maybe a few, but for the most part, they've got things like bank, mom, tooth, vice president. They've captured stuff, yay, right. But they haven't decided what to do about them or what they're committed about them to do. Right. So that's step 2. People fall off there regularly. And step 3 is, even if they've decided I need to call my sister, but they try to keep that in their head, they haven't parked some reminder in some trusted external bucket, right? And so the organized phase, people then don't have trusted organizational system. That they can park things so that their head doesn't have to keep reminding them about it. Right? Anybody watching or listening to this that has a calendar or maintains a calendar or an agenda, you've already decided your head can't do it. Right?
Of course,
so,
yeah. Because it has limited memory, right? I mean...
4 things. That's it.
Yeah. What I like about the 5 steps is that, actually, I'm a person that always, when I look at new concepts, I'm like, okay, how can I use them? And what am I doing wrong so it doesn't work? So what I like about it is that you don't collect the idea and you go into execution right away, because that can kill a lot of time. And that's why I didn't get things done in the past, because when you collect it first, then you use the second step, you put it somewhere, then you organize it, then you look at it again, and then you execute. I mean, that pretty much 80% have solved is solved in the meantime.
Well, I hate to admit it, but this is simple stuff.
Very.
I didn't.
That's why it's so successful. Probably.
This is no like new foreign language or some new technology you need to learn. Everybody knows how to write stuff down. Everybody knows how to make a next action decision. Everybody knows how to make a list. Everybody knows how to look at a list and make some good choice about what to do on the list or not. Duh.
Were you surprised that became a worldwide bestseller?
Yeah, I was. Let me admit, Toby, that I've never had any formal education, or a traditional education anyway, in time management, productivity, management, business, or psychology. I just came up with this to state, how do I keep a clear head as my life got more mature and complicated? And I didn't have any preconceptions about what that needed to be.
How long did it take you to write the book, to put it into? Did you do the 5 steps while writing the book?
Well, in a way, I mean, I didn't decide to write the book until I'd been doing this work for 25 years, and thousands of hours I'd spent one-on-one desk side with some of the busiest and brightest, sharpest people you'd ever meet on the planet.
Even with McKinsey consultants, as you told me before.
I could list a long list of some of the best you've ever met or would ever meet. Interestingly enough, Toby, the people most attracted to this, you'd be in that category, the people who need it the least. They're already the most organized. They already know systems work. They already know it helps to be organized. They're just up to here. They don't have any more room.
Right.
They already know they can create good stuff because they've already done that. They just would love more room to create more cooler, bigger, greater stuff.
I mean, that's something what I always love, because I teach people on how to speak, and most people who come are already very good speakers. If you want to sell vitamin pills in network marketing, go to people who already eat vitamin pills like crazy, right? So of course, the people who are already very organized come to you to get even more organized.
Yeah, it's kind of strange about that. But I had no idea, I just, after 25 years, at some point, I had just had a bunch of good friends and advisors say, David, come on, you need to write the manual. And it took me 25 years to figure out that what I'd figured out, nobody else seemed to have figured it out that way, and that it was bulletproof. You couldn't punch a hole in it. It absolutely, anybody who implemented any of these techniques and any of this method improves their stability, control, focus, creating more meaningful space to focus on more meaningful stuff without exception. You couldn't punch a hole in it, but it took me that long to really realize and feel confident enough that I had it. Yeah, and so then I said, in case I got run over by a bus, I better write the manual. Somebody had figured it out later on, but let me go ahead and write the manual. So that was 1997. And then when I pulled the trigger on deciding to write the book, and took 4 years to get it out, the first edition in 2001.
4 years. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a while to write a book, 4 years. I mean, the methodology was clear. You had the proof of concept, but it took you 4 years.
It took a year. It took a year to figure out how to get a publisher. Mm. How do you do you agent? Do you go directly to an editor? Do you go to a publisher? How do you do that? So it was a year to try to figure that out and basically create the business plan for a book. Yeah. And get an agent. And then it took the next year to really write the first draft or complete the first draft. And then by the end of that year, the first draft didn't work. Mm. It wasn't as good as I thought it needed to be.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I threw it away. I just threw it away and started again. So I wrote a second draft in the third year, and that worked. And once that worked, then we had to decide, what does the typeface need to look like? What's the title of the book? How's it going to be marketed and so forth. So it was a pretty major event.
That's, by the way, one thing I really admire with American authors. And if you look at the worldwide list of bestsellers, most of them are American, Australian, Canadian, because getting things done. It's just the easiest title in the world. and Germans, we always try to overcomplicate titles and things, that I'm very good friends with John Strilecki, and he told me that his first book wasn't published by a publisher. It was self-published in the US because they didn't want it. Can you imagine that? He sells one book every 10 seconds only in the German-speaking market. So how many publishers closed the door in front of you? Would you share that with us?
Well, I got a good agent first.
Okay.
I got good advice that if my book had any potential reach out beyond some niche, if I was writing a book about the sex life of retired penguins, in Antarctica, there's probably only one publisher you would need that would be interested in the book.
You would do 5 steps. How the penguin.
Yeah. But if you had something that had more universal appeal, potentially, and even national, and even, oh my God, even international, oh my God, who even thought about that? Then the best thing to do would be get an agent if you didn't have a name. So I happened to find, just serendipitously, I found a really, really good agent, and she still is. And because she'd been an ex-editor in New York, so she knew the game, she knew what those people were after and so forth. Because people publish a book only if there's an interest in it, right? If they're going to make money on it. So writing a business plan for a book.
Is it
now?
Yeah.
Well, it's published in 30 languages now, so I have no idea how many different countries it's probably being distributed in. But that was, so that was the first thing to do was try to figure that out. And then she farmed it out and we got one proposal. It was from Viking, which was a subset of Penguin, back then. And, the guy who turned it down at HarperCollins later on, had to eat his, like, oh my God, I turned down this thing that then became sort of a global bestseller.
Right.
But I found I had a fabulous editor. So it was all a lot of kind of perfect storm of good things that happened, but it wasn't huge, in terms of the opportunities there. And then I had no idea how good it would do.
Right.
Like I had high anticipation, but no expectation. Because even by then in 2001, the early 2000s, there was, time management and organizational stuff. And, was such a noisy marketplace anyway, in terms of how many people were doing how many things. I had no idea whether people would resonate with the difference of what it was that this book was really about. And what
how many copies are sold until today? Do you know that?
Over 2 million. It's hard to track all the international, versions of this and so forth. But
that's a lot. People say you can't make money with books, but with 2 million copies, of course, you can make money with books. So will there be a second book coming? Is there anything planned? Anything you're working on?
Well, I did the second edition, the new edition of Getting Things Done 2015. Since then, we wrote Getting Things Done for Teenagers, and we wrote Getting Things Done Workbook. So to make it easier for people to engage with this, because the Getting Things Done book can be pretty daunting. I mean, it includes a lot of stuff in there that it was 25, 30 years of my experience sort of put into one book. I didn't hold anything back.
Right.
And so people can be kind of overwhelmed. Wow, that looks too structured, looks like too much to do, looks like whatever. And so I understand that. So, I'm not a really good trainer. I'm a pretty good presenter, but I don't have the patience to hang out with people to get them to learn stuff.
That's why you wrote the workbook.
That's why we wrote the workbook. And the 10 steps that walk you into the process. So those were there. We're looking at potentially another book about getting things done and organizational culture and high performance cultures and high performance teams.
Yeah.
Because that's been kind of a missing piece. People, once they get GTD, they go, God, how do I get everybody around me to do this? Wouldn't it be great if my whole team and my assistants and my boss and everybody around me actually got this, so we're not wasting all that energy and creating so much frustration because of all the tensions that are created by people not doing this?
If we go back to the beginning of our interview, we talked about all the decisions young people have at the moment. And if you wrote Getting Things Done for Teenagers, what's the big difference? I mean, the system must be the same, but what is the approach different? The
Cartoons.
way
Cartoons.
So it's pretty much the same thing.
Makes it easier. I've had a lot of adults look at it and go, "Oh my God, this is so much easier."
I should have bought that one.
I love pictures. I love the pictures and whatever, and and pretty much dealing with a lot of the issues kids have about the choices they have to make. So it's focused more on kind of what happens when you're somewhere between 12 and 22. And, but it's all the same stuff. I mean, believe me, we've had kids 12, 13, 14 go through our public seminars just at an adult level, and they get it.
Right.
Because it's, how old does a kid need to be to understand how would you like the party to be? What would wild success for you be? What would you like to do? Great. What's the next step? As soon as they're old enough to understand that language, they're old enough to implement this.
Yeah.
And they're also not being taught that.
Yeah. It's a big decision-making process also behind it. It's not only to get things done, but then once you have done it, you have to put your focus on it for a while, right?
Well, everybody's making decisions all the time. So it's not like suddenly you have to make decisions. You decided to have this podcast right now, right? You're going to decide what to do as soon as we get off. You're constantly deciding. Me too. So what? So it's we're always in a decision process as long as you have any choice whatsoever, about what to do. Again, if your building is burning, you used to have some choices about how you're going to get out of the building, and how soon and what else you want to take with you.
Yeah.
But so you don't get rid of the decision-making process and the choosing process. What you want to do is make it a trusted process, especially when you don't have any particular crisis that's forcing you to have to make a decision.
Yeah. One question I wrote down prior to our interview is most people, when they're highly emotional, they make decisions. How do you use the 5 steps if you are highly emotional and that you have to decide something now? I mean, there are sometimes situations where your brain pretty much is going crazy and people would say, I don't have time for the 5 steps now. I have to input, output now.
Well, my sort of big answer to that is trust your gut. Or your spirit, your intuition, or your liver, or whatever you want to trust in the moment. The whole idea of making instant choices about stuff has a lot of what my methodology does is build in a systematic way to, on a consistent basis, keep looking at the whole game. We call it the weekly review, or any kind of a review where once a week, or at least every few days, you need to step back and catch up all the stuff that's happened, all the new opportunities, all the, what are all the errands you need to run? What are all the things you need to talk to your spouse about? What are all the projects that you've got going right now? And what's the status of all those things? And so that kind of review and reflection process, if you're doing that, somewhat rigorously and somewhat consistently, then that's a lot easier to make your trusted, instant, in the moment choices. See, you don't have time to think. You need to have already thought.
And I didn't want to make it a big topic for the entire interview because we will be airing this for years, hopefully. the whole situation we're in right now, lockdown in Germany, pandemic, rethinking, restructuring, people doing things that would never have done in the past. Any advice for this time especially?
Just do all these. Just do all these steps. This methodology is really set up. It shows itself to the fore in surprise and change. Because that's when, okay, what's new? What do I need to integrate? What is that? What do I need to let go of? Now I've got this new thing set up. Oh my God, what's the new project that just showed up now? I'm working from home. What's the new project that showed up now because I got to figure out what to do with my kids? What's the new project? Yada, yada. And it's, at some point, usually if people sort of start to implement some sort of personal organizational productivity system, those kind of changes and surprises throws them off the system. Once you get really good at this, it throws you onto the system. It's like, oh, wow. Okay, now let me make a list of every single thing that's got my attention now, given the change that's going on. And so people learning to do that, that's part of the maturation, or that's how you get more mature with implementing this methodology.
Right.
And so that's, it's, not that it's fun. GTD, this getting things done does not make things fun. It makes it in the driver's seat, puts you back in the driver's seat of it.
Got it. And so driven by something, right?
You don't even have to like your life to get it off your mind. But off your mind is what you want, so that you could then navigate your life with much more clarity and focus.
That's an amazing sentence. You don't even have to like it. Yeah, but you do it anyway.
Yeah, I'm not a motivational speaker, Toby.
You are. I mean, you put things in a nutshell, and you help people to have outputs. You help people to have an easier life. Let me put it this way.
Yeah, well, in a way, I sell hope. There is a way out. I don't care what's going on. It may not be fun, but there's a way out. What you don't want to do is leave yourself in victim and complaining mode. That's that.
I even think, talking to you, that you are very, that word is so over. Many people use it too much, but it sounds like you have a spiritual side. Martial arts is spiritual. You talk about your gut feeling, your liver. That's something that all these things are not being put in a book in a structure usually, but you are using them for, you're combining these two worlds. That's what I actually like about it.
Well, you want to be, if anybody listening to this is allergic to the idea of spiritual, I use spiritual with a small s, just stuff you can't see. You can't see your emotions, or psychics can say they can, but
they say they can, yeah.
Yeah, and who knows? I can't, but there's certainly a lot of things that go on that affect what we do and how we think and how we perform. And a lot of that is on levels that you can't materially see, but they're very real things. And so, you can call it whatever you want. Intuition's a good word. It's like trust your sense of, okay, what do you think is the best thing to do out of this list of things to do? What do you think is the best way to spend your afternoon?
Right.
Think right now would be the biggest win for you is to stop everything and kiss your kids because you haven't talked to them in a while. Or, I don't know. Those are the kinds of things where, I'm not going to give anybody those formulas. All I'm doing is giving people a methodology so that they're not distracted, so they can be present with their kids.
Right.
A big secret about getting things done is it's not really as much about getting things done as it is about appropriately engaging with all of your aspects of your life so that you're present with whatever you're doing.
Right. Because I understood, if you use the steps, you also have more time to spend time with your kids. Absolutely. So before I ask you the final question, a big one, is if you're looking back a little bit into your life, well, that's the final question, and you meet the 18-year-old David that is running around having 35 jobs, what's the advice you would give to him? And he doesn't know the 5 steps. And you could also not use the 5 steps. You cannot say, read the book, getting things done. What would you tell him?
Relax. Start to listen to who you are and what you want, as opposed to what you think everybody else wants you to want.
Oh, it's true. Where do you think all our society is going right now? If you have that magic ball you look in with all, you are also biologically wiser than most of our listeners. What does it do with you, all that we're experiencing right now?
Well, I've got the good fortune to actually, still be okay and not be thrown into big traumatic, change given what's going on. Most of my work is virtual anyway. So, that's not a big difference. And Catherine and I, my wife and I, have worked from home for 35 years or 30 years. So
not new for you.
That's nothing new. What's interesting is just to see what the world is going to be doing and what kind of changes are going on. So it's more of a curiosity factor to see. Telemedicine is going way up now because doctors are having to not see people in person. And so that's changed a lot. The idea of people working from home and being virtual and being their own contractor for what they do has sped up 10 times.
Yeah.
These were all trends that were going on anyway. This just sped them up like in spades.
It's like a fertilizer for these things, right?
I even read, maybe 3-4 years ago, somebody had estimated that by 2050, 50% of the US workforce would be subcontractors. Because most companies don't have the bandwidth, don't have the attention to be able to hold people's hands, and people are being expected to self-manage a lot more, even within companies. So that's why GTD and my stuff is just still picking up. It's still spreading more and more around the world because people are realizing, oh my God. See, when I first wrote the first edition, in 2001, it was really targeted for maybe for the top 10% of the high performing professionals out there.
Executives, right?
They were not just executives, but the fast track folks, because they were the first people that were being bombarded with the tsunami of email and so forth at that point. And so they were the people most interested in taking advantage of what I had. But the new edition in 2015, nothing changed except the audience. Instead of 10%, it was 90% of people in the world
so interesting.
Needed to know how to manage themselves and were being expected to manage themselves.
Because of the time that changed, or because the system was the same?
System was the same. System will be true in 2090 when we fly to Jupiter. They still need an in basket. They still need to decide next actions. They still need to, as soon as the world was anything more than what you could finish in the moment or needed to survive, then you have the ability to be able to increase your cognitive bandwidth by capturing, clarifying, organizing, and reflecting on the stuff that you've done, and the stuff in your ecosystem. So that's not going to change, and it hasn't changed.
Right.
Again, what changes is the audience and the spread of the need. See, I knew even with the first edition that this book worked for kids, it worked for the clergy, it worked for physicians, it worked for stay-at-home dads, it works for anybody that's busy that wants to be able to have a clearer head and be able to feel more on top of their game. And so that's not going to change.
Yeah, you're also certifying people of using and training the methodology. Is that correct? Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure.
So how the community that we have, if they want to dig deeper, they can read the book. That's step one. What are the next steps with you?
Well, if you go to gettingthingsdone.com, our website, and look under training and coaching, you'll see all the 90 countries that we now have certified people. And this is not mail order certification. Believe me, this is rigorous stuff. These guys have been through the mill, and they're wonderful folks. In Germany, by the way, Next Action Partners, out of Berlin, and these are great folks. And they're doing coaching and training around this, and we've certified them to do that. So that's a lot of what my work has been. After once the book sort of took off internationally, the world was just knocking on our door. Gee, how can I be a GTD coach? How can I be a whatever? And so took us a while, the last 10 years really, of how do we build a sort of global licensee network of people we've licensed and certified. And so that's going on. That's a lot of what I do is help support those folks. As a matter of fact, when I get off from you in another hour or so, I'll be on a community of practice call worldwide with our certified trainers and our trainers in certification process.
So, and that could be done by people who are listening here. If they want to dig deeper into the subject, they would apply, and then
they certainly can, and they can either get coaching or whatever, or they can see, hey, if I want to be a coach or if I want to be a trainer, then just look up your country and see who to contact, because they're the folks who now have the ability and license to do that.
Well,
that's not me. I just support the licensees, the network, the master trainers, and then they now have been given the freedom to be able to build their own distribution channels.
Got it. You're just the lighthouse with the 5 steps. The silverback in the jungle. It was amazing talking to you. Big honor. I mean, everybody in Germany who is in the personal development scene knows your book, and I hope that we could inspire a lot more people reading it and digging into the topic. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Toby. This was fun. Hopefully this is useful to folks. By the way, if you've read the book, read it again. It'll be a whole different book. That's true. Yeah, that's with many books. That's even with my unboxing book. Once you have unboxed, there's another box to unbox. So thank you so much. Indeed.